Welcome back again to another GWT tutorial. In my previous tutorial, or tutorials actually, I talked about implementing RPC calls in Google Web Toolkit, or GWT. What I did not cover, which is a small topic in the extension of that, is how you can use the same architecture we use for RPC to handle error messages. So let's get started, and let me introduce that with a small presentation. Okay, close that, and there we go. So like I said, today's topic is easy error handling with remote procedure calls. So what did I do in my previous tutorial? Well, I demonstrated how complex data objects can be returned using RPC, and I triggered different screens based on the data returned. So in today's topic, I'm going to show you how you can easily handle errors using remote procedure calls. For that, I will be using the exact same architecture as last time. My RPC methods will still return objects, and the GUI will show an error message returned from the server simulating something went wrong. So that's basically the new part. Say if something were to go wrong at your server side, which could be anything, error message is returned, and that one is displayed on whatever page or widget is open at that point. So how will this error handling work? Well, you may remember this example. So page 1 and page 2 both send their request to the server. Then the server sends the response back wrapped in an event object or envelope, like I simulated it, which will then be sent to the respective page 1 or page 2. So in this case, what I'm going to do is say page 1 and page 2, or either one of them, have sent some request for information to the server or some form input, and something went wrong. So an error message is returned to the client, as all information is going to come in at the main view, and the main view will just send it to whatever page is open. So in this case is page 1, and page 1 will then display the error message. This makes sense from an architectural point of view, given that if you watch my previous video, that I have the habit of doing the RPC call first before changing or updating the page. So if something goes wrong with that request, the error message is displayed on the page where the button is pressed, and therefore it can be used in pretty much any situation. Okay, so now let me demonstrate how I accomplish this in Eclipse. And for that I do need to make some changes to the project I did last time. Those are minor changes. And I will explain basically why I'm making these changes as I go along. Okay, let's open up first. If you may remember from the previous video, and else do take a look, I had a main view, and wait for it to open. No, my workspace is okay. I think my workspace is done building by now. So I had a main view that could open a person info page and a person edit page, and one of these, and a person save page. So basically the person info page would display the info, the person edit page would be opened by the info page and allow me to key in the new information, and when that one was sent to the server and gotten the updated info back, the saved page would open. So I had a generic event handle event method here that basically, if the server returned a person retrieved event, which was the, let's open up just to do a proper recap. So I had a, okay, let's start over again. Basically, if I want to open the person info page, I would make a RPC call to the server and retrieve and invoke the getPersonInfo method, which would return the info in a data event, which would then come in at the handle event method So if it's the person info retrieved event, it will basically store the person info and open the person info page. Then that page would open the person info edit page, and the person info edit page would, upon pressing the save button, invoke the update person info method, which would return the information wrapped in a different event. In this case, the person updated event, which would also come in at the handle event, and then basically open up the person info saved event. So basically, all of my events are coming in at the handle event method, and based on whatever event it is detected inside the handle event method, I would open up the respective correct page. You can especially see this in my client implementation page. In my default callback, any event that comes in, I will just send it to the handle event method in the main view. Okay, so without a doubt, having a handle event method is useful. But in this case, I also would like to have a handle error event method. So, okay, I could of course. So basically, correct information comes in via handle event. Invalid information comes in via handle error event, for example. Of course I could add this method, but it brings about one problem. I need to display my error message on the page that is currently open. But the thing is, if it comes in, for example, this method, I have no idea which page is open. And the same thing applies for the handle error event. So for that I need to make a little bit of a change to my architecture. Okay, let me show you how to do that step by step. So I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call this class myComposite. And this myComposite is going to replace the composite class we use for our widgets, even though it's going to serve the exact same purpose. It's just going to be a little bit, it's going to be the same thing as a composite with a little extra. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to ensure that our myComposite can do the exact same thing as the Google Web Toolkit composite class. I'm going to extend the class from composite and naturally import that. So basically, for those who are very knowledgeable in Java, you should know that basically I'm right now inheriting from composite, and therefore my class myComposite, which is a subclass of composite, will inherit all the attributes and functionality of the composite class. So since this is a subclass, I want to since this is a subclass of composite which I will be using in all my widgets, I want to force the widgets that I'm going to build to implement two methods. The handle event method, which always needs to be present, and the handle error method. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, the easiest way to do that, or the tidiest way to do that, is to make this an abstract class and define the abstract method. So public abstract void. In the first place, I want to stick with my handle event method. And if you know your Java theory, you'll probably know that a abstract class cannot be instantiated, but can be used to define methods that must be implemented by the classes they are inheriting from. So if later on I'm going to have my main view extend myComposite, main view is obligated to implement handle event and the other method that I'm implementing. So public abstract void handle error. And in this particular case, I'm going to make it really simple. I'm just going to receive a string as an error message. Okay. So basically any class that is going to extend myComposite will have the functionality of the regular composite available and is obligated to implement these two methods. And this is actually going to be a huge lifesaver, a huge convenience for us, as you will hopefully see later. Okay, but first I need to update my widget pages, so it's a good thing I put all of them in one package. So instead of saying extend composite, I'm going to say extend myComposite. In terms of Google functionality, it's still the same, but it will also force me to implement those two methods. That's why I get an error now. So I must add the unimplemented method. So I'm now forced to add the handle error method, which I'm going to put under the handle event method. And just for tidiness, I'm going to add the word override above the handle event as well. This is optional, but I'm doing this to indicate that this method is indeed overwritten from the abstract method defined in the superclass, in this case myComposite. Okay, and I'm going to make this change to every other widget that I have at this point. So I'm going to call this myComposite and implement the handle error method. And the handle event method also has to be added because this one doesn't have one yet. And I'm going to turn this one into myComposite as well. As a result, I need to handle these two methods as well. And implement it as and turn into myComposite here as well. Okay, so there they are. So okay, I'm just going to leave those specific GUI classes for what they are at this point. I can remove the composite import now because I'm inheriting from myComposite in this case. Okay, so now going to the client implementation class. When basically a callback comes back from the RPC call, it will return a object, and an object of the type data event. Yeah, and this was always passed along to our handle event method, and we're going to continue to do so actually. The only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new object to contain my error messages. So I'm going to call it error event. An error event, just like any other event that I have created, is going to extend from data event as well. So it's totally, in that sense, a completely different object. It's an object similar to any other event object we have created. Just how we handle this object will be slightly different. Okay, so this object is going to contain a error message. And I'm going to generate a getter and setter for that. Okay, so now going back to my client implementation, basically what I want to happen is any event that comes back of the type data event will be sent to handle event except for the error event object. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create an if statement. If result is instance of error event, and error event needs to be imported. I'm going to invoke the handle error method on my main view and send him the error message string that is contained inside this event. If it is not an instance of error event, I will let my else clausule trigger and just send the event to the main view as per normal, where it will be handled as per normal. Okay, so now let's follow the next step. So an error event is returned, which I will simulate on the server side later, and the main view handle error method is invoked on the main view, which means that this string error message actually comes in here. So now this string error message needs to be shown on whatever page is visible. You may remember that in my main view I have no GUI of my own. I always have some other widget being visible. So either the info page, the edit page, or the save page. It could be either one of those. Which one is open, I have no idea. At least if I hit this method, I have no idea which one is open. It could be either one of those three. because RPC calls are asynchronous and therefore can be returned whenever the server feels like it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make some further changes, and that's definitely where the myComposite actually came in. Okay, so I'm going to create a global variable of the type myComposite. I'm going to open and I'm going to call this one current page. So what are we going to do here? Well, what I've done every time that I open a widget, I basically create the widget and put it on the put it in the respective panel and display it. So basically this variable only exists inside the open method, which is fine if we use the architecture up until this point. But now I want to send the error message to either one of these three variables. So that's where my global variable comes in. So whatever page I'm creating, I'm going to store it as the current page variable, which is global. And this current page variable will be added to whatever view I'm using. So same thing for page 2. And same thing for page 3. Okay, the benefit that this gives to me is that whichever object is stored as the current page, and it could be any object, and they are all members of the myComposite type, they are all inheriting from myComposite, so therefore I can use this as the data type. I already know, regardless of which one it is, that the one stored as the current page has a handle error message available, to which I can just pass along the error message received. So whenever this thing is invoked, it will simply pass, regardless of whoever it is, pass the error message along to the current open page, and let the current open page just take care of it. And the current open page could be the info page, the edit page, or the save page, doesn't matter. It's the page's responsibility to handle this. The other benefit we get with this is, say if I'm going to have multiple levels of main views, or I want the event to come back from the server that is just going to do a small update on the open widget, I can also say, okay, if it's this event, open this page, if it's that event, open that page, and if it's neither one of those, I'm just going to pass the event along to whatever page is currently open and let him take care of it, whether or not he wants to open a page of his own if he's a main view, or just do a small update on the page. Doesn't matter, his responsibility, I'll pass it along to them. So that's another added benefit of using this approach. But for this video I'm just going to focus on the error message. So okay, the error message has come back as an event in the default callback. Since it is an error event, we will send the message to the handle error method. And I just noticed that I did this a little bit on the sloppy side, even though this works perfectly well. Let me just correct it. So this should be error event, the event, do a proper cast, from result, and then return the error message. So in this case my Eclipse was so kind to bail me out here, but this would have been the proper code. So yeah, there we were. So basically the error, whatever error message is given from the client implementation default callback, I'm just throwing it over the fence to whatever page is open, and then it's really up to that page to decide what needs to be done. Okay, so now let's open up the person. Well, which one shall we do first? Maybe we'll just do the info page and the edit page. So the info page, I'm going to add a nice new label here. And I'm going to declare this one globally as well. So label, error label. And of course I'm going to initialize this one inside my constructor. And in this case, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to put my label under my edit button. So that will be this.errorLabel equals new label. No content to begin with. And I'm just going to, in this case, I'm just going to put it in the vertical panel, right below the button. So this.errorLabel. And of course I want to set the horizontal alignment for that as well. And since I'm still ever the lazy programmer, I'm just going to copy that line from a previous piece of code. So error label has horizontal alignment center. Okay, then looking at the handle error method, well, what this one will very simply do, whatever error message comes in, since I have no other class to pass it along, I'm simply going to put it on my error label. So error label dot set text error. So whatever it is that's being returned, I'm just going to display it. Same thing for the edit page. So again, and just to hurry things up, and because like I said, still a lazy programmer, I'm going to put my error label there. And of course initialize it inside the constructor. And also to keep it consistent, put it nicely below the button in the vertical panel. And inside my handle error message, I'm just going to say, okay, whatever error message comes in, I'm just going to set it on my error label using set text. So there we go. So just to recap one more time. The client implementation gets a error event object back, which gets cast to the actual error event object, sent to the main view using the handle error method. The main view will basically pass this method along to whatever widget is currently open that is saved in the current page widget, which is of the generic type myComposite that all widgets are now inheriting from, and which all must compulsory implement the handle error and the handle event method. And then basically is for example ends up on the person info edit page being displayed in the error label that I have declared. Okay, now for the last part, just to simulate all of this, I'm going to simulate some error messages. So, well, let's say for example I'm updating the person info, and in this case I'm taking the name, the age and the gender. So say if either one of these three is empty, that would be a problem because you cannot update stuff, for example, in your database if you don't have a value. So yeah, let's do some error checking here on the server side. Typically in a real life situation, I would have done this sort of error checking on my client side to save on the server traffic, but since I don't have a real database here, I cannot simulate problems with a real database, so therefore I move the error checking here. The principle remains the same, whether or not there's a problem with your database or whether or not I'm checking for empty strings, the process of error handling is the same. So yeah, how shall I do this? There's a few ways I can do error handling. Okay, one way of doing it is, well, I create a boolean called false. Then I'm going to say, okay, if, and I'm going to create a string error message. Actually, again, I never script my tutorials. I'm really making these up as I go along for the most part. Yeah, so I do need to think for a moment in what way of error handling or error checking I'm going to do here. So, okay, in this case I'm going to say if name is completely empty, so equals nothing, I'm going to set my error to true, and I'm going to say on my error message name should not be empty. Okay, since I am displaying my error messages as a label, and I haven't actually tested this, so let's just see what happens. I'm going to add a \n for enter. Okay, then let's do the other check. So if name is empty, I'm going to set this error message. So if age is in this case smaller than 0, which is not possible, I'm also going to set my error boolean to true and say age cannot be below 0. Okay, lastly, gender can also not be empty. So when gender equals nothing, my error message also will be set to true, and I'm going to say gender should not be empty. Okay, so what will typically happen is, regardless of which of these, if either one of these variables or all of them have invalid values, a error boolean will be set to true and a message string will be extended. So lastly, if my error boolean is true, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a error event object. If it is not true, meaning it's still false, I'm just going to do my regular stuff. So I'm going to update the person info and return it as part of the event. One minor change that I'm going to make is all the way at the top, I'm going to create a variable of the type data event called a event. And when the person updated event is created, I'm going to set this specific, I'm going to convert a event to the event. So I'm going to set the event as the a event and return a event. So why am I doing this? Well, really simple. If there is an error, I don't want to return this person updated event. Yet I don't want to return, yet I do need to return a data event. So what I'm going to do is, in my if statement, I'm going to create an instance of error event, also called the event. And don't forget to import it. I'm going to set the error message string as the error message string that I have so carefully built up using my if statements. And then I'm going to set this error event as the generic a event, which is returned at the bottom. So if there's an error, a error event will be returned. If there's no error, via the else clausule, the regular event will be returned. So there you go. So in this case, again, I even have a method on my server side that is capable of returning 2 completely different events depending on the situation, which can be very useful in a lot of situations. Okay, so now the grand moment. Let's see if if all of this worked as I exactly intended to. Let's open up my Chrome, and there we go. Okay, so I'm at the person info page now, and I'm going to the edit page. And like I said, in this particular case, name was not allowed to be empty, so let's make it empty. Age cannot be smaller than 1, so let's make it -1. And make the gender empty as well. So let's press save. Okay, and now indeed I get an error message back. Name should not be empty, age cannot be below 0, gender should not be empty. And in this particular case, the \n didn't seem to work. It's been a while since I've done something like this, because generally I don't return information in this manner. But yeah, for the sake of demonstration, I decided to go about this way. So let's do a very quick check if if the BR will work, and else I'm just gonna never mind it. Basically, it's not a good idea to return multiple error messages in one big message, but yeah, for the sake of demonstration. Okay, so let's try one more time. even though I've already proven that indeed this way of error handling works. Okay, let's go one more time to the edit and set this to -1 and make this empty as well. Okay, it's also not the BR. No, then never mind. Not sure how you can exactly do enters in... Oh, actually I already know. It was \n, but it's /n. And if that really doesn't work, I'm really gonna give it up. And I'll make a separate video on it or something, or I'll add it in the comments or whatever. Okay, one more time, third time the charm. Okay, alright, never mind. I'll handle it. If you know the answer, let me know in the comment, and else I will let you know once I found out. Okay, so I've basically already proven that this works, but just to make it more clear, I'm going to show it one more time, but then with breakpoints. So I'm going to add a breakpoint on my server side. I'm going to add a breakpoint on my client side, client implementation side. I'll do one in the main view as well, and in both the handle event and the handle error, and lastly I'll do it in the edit page as well. Okay, so let's run one more time just to do the just to show you the sequence in which things are executing. Okay, so in this particular case, upon the first page load, the information is retrieved, so the result coming back as a person retrieved event. So it will skip the error event and then actually straight away go to the handle event method in the main view. So in the main view we'll check which one it is. So in this case it's a person retrieved event, which will be invoke the open person info page, which will result in the person info page being displayed. Okay, so now we go to the edit page, and again I'm going to do the error scenario first. Okay, so I'm going to press save. So we are now on the server side, and the generic data event is created. Boolean set to false, error message is set to empty. So if name is empty, I'm going to set this boolean to true, add the error message, same thing for age, same thing for gender. Then I'm going to say, okay, since there is an error, because error is true, it was already triggered by the first if statement, I'm going to create an error event instead, set my error message, set this error event as the generic data event, and simply return that. So now that data event comes in the client implementation again. Since this case it is an error event, I'm casting it to error event, and I'm then passing it along to the main view handle error method and not the handle event error method. So it arrives here in the main view, and what will the main view do? Well, he's just simply passing it to whatever page is currently open, which is, I so happen to know, is the edit page, which is saved as a global variable current page, but technically speaking the main view wouldn't know and doesn't care. So okay, going in there, we indeed end up in the person info edit page, because that was the one that was currently open, and which will set the error message to the error label on the GUI. And thus we will see this error message. Okay, so let's now make it correct. So we're going to stick with Jane Sparrow from the previous example, age 25 and female. So now let's press save again. So again, we're going to jump to the server side, because we just made an RPC call. In this case, name has a value, age is above 0, and gender is also not empty, so there's no error. So we'll jump to the else statement, in which case we will update the person info as per normal, create the person updated event, set the data, set this person updated event as the generic data event, which is then returned. So again, we arrive at the default callback. Since it's not an error event, it will just be passed along to the handle event method in the main view, which will check whether or not it is one of the types that he knows. So either a person retrieved event or the updated event, and if not, he will just pass it along to the current page, see if he can use it. In this case, I'm not covering that scenario. So, but since yes, this is the person updated event, I update the person info and open up the info saved page. And as a result, we can see the person info saved. Going back to the main screen, yes, you can see that indeed it's now Jane Sparrow, who is female. Alright, and that brings me full circle to everything that I wanted to say, at least in this tutorial. So I hope you learned something from it, and yeah, if you have any comments, please do let me know. And I'll see you next time.